All right, students, welcome back. Welcome to the Star Tutors YouTube channel. If you guys haven't been with us before, I am Chase. I hope you guys are all doing well, hanging in there wherever you are in the world. Just as a reminder, guys, if you missed the live stream today, the recording is going to be posted immediately after with this same link. So you guys can always go back and rewatch this video. It will be posted on the channel. But I had the idea this weekend and was validated by some of our tutors to do this video, which is really going to be explaining the importance of the last 10 questions. If you're already scoring above, let's say, somewhere in the range of 28 to 31 on the ACT math section. So today's going to be generally about the ACT math test. We're going to talk a little bit about the scale and just kind of remind you guys of things that I really want you to be aware of if you're trying to improve beyond, again, let's say 28 to 31. So as you guys get into the chat today, if you're joining us for the live stream, can you guys just give me a thumbs up or a hello? Let us know that you're here so we can address you appropriately when you ask questions about anything that we talk about today. And then we will get started talking a little bit about the scale and just reminding you guys again the importance of being a great test taker, right? The difference between being a great test taker and just memorizing a bunch of stuff. Right? If you do both of those two things, that's how you get a 36. But if you're trying to improve from a 30, let's say, to a 34, today's lesson can be super, super helpful in doing that. Okay? So again, guys, as you jump on, as you hear me, hopefully everybody can hear me, give us a thumbs up or a hello in the chat, and then we will get started with the lesson for today. And guys, one other thing as a reminder, or I guess two other things. Please don't forget, guys, to download Star U in the App Store or on Google Play. We highly encourage you guys to do that. That is our tutoring app. We'll talk a little bit about that. I suppose we can do that now. All of the content that we're going to see today in terms of the highest level of questions on the ACT Math section, all of this stuff can be found within the Star U app. So again, all you have to do, just before we get started here, download Star U. It's for free, right? It's for free. App Store. Google Play. Right? Or can access from the desktop. And again, guys, I encourage you to download it for no other reason than if you guys do download, right? You get the home screen that looks like this. We'll log in quick. Right? The beauty of this, guys, is that when we see these practice problems that we're going through today, okay, and that you can practice all of these. It's downloadable for free, right? You can access it on the App Store or Google Play or on a computer. Okay, it all looks like this, right? On the home screen, you can click ACT and SAT practice lessons, right? We're on the ACT to start, so we can click ACT Math. Okay, click ACT Math, and now, guys, you have all of this information. Today, there's a question that we're going to go through that concerns angles. And here you can find every single angles question that could possibly come up within the ACT Math section. Okay, guys, so again, I highly encourage you guys to download Star U. It's going to be really important, and then we'll show you guys why it's so important during the lesson today and why you guys can continue to improve. Once again, guys, before we get started officially with the lesson for today, can everybody just, if you're here and you're online and you guys want to communicate with questions or anything like that, can everybody give me a thumbs up in the chat or just a hello in the chat, 2 thumbs up in the chat, whatever you guys want to do, so that we can get started. As always, if you guys like the video today or you like the channel, don't forget to subscribe, please, and help us spread the word. We can continue to make more of these videos with the more students that we have on. So help us spread the word there, guys. Okay. All right. So let's get started. Is everybody ready to go? If you guys are ready to go and you do feel like commenting in the chat, can you guys say good to go? And we're going to look at the practice test for 74F, which is the officially released 2021 test. Hey, Dennis, welcome. Thanks for the thumbs up. Jose, great. Guys, we're looking at the 74F practice test, which is the one that is officially released by the ACT. If you guys are looking for that test form, you can find it in the description below this video. If you just open up the description, you guys can see that test form. Okay, and to start, we're going to go all the way down to the bottom of the test form. I'm just pulling that up now. And we're going to take a look at the scale. And if you guys have seen our videos before, if you guys have seen us on YouTube before, you'll know how adamant I am about the scale and the importance of it. Now, there are certain things, both on the SAT and the ACT, where, of course, if you memorize more content, you're going to do better on this test. There's no question about that. But I want you guys to be better test takers too, okay? And what that means is trying to find a way to maximize your score under any circumstance, no matter what the test is. Because everything we talked about today is actually also going to apply to the SAT if you guys ever take the SAT. It's also going to apply to the AP exams if you guys ever take the AP exams. So what I'd like everybody to do is I'd like everybody to go down to the scale for the 74F test. Okay, and it looks like this. Again, within the description of this video, below this video, you guys will find this scale. And what I want to talk about first is trying to improve from that 29-31 range. That really is where these last 10 questions come into play. Okay, because what everybody's so concerned about always is finishing the test. Everybody's so worried about that. How do I finish? How do I finish, right? Well, on the ACT, it doesn't matter if you finish. Every question is worth the same value. It drives me crazy. Part of the reason we started these programs and started doing these YouTube videos is because it drives me crazy when somebody says that you should do the last 20 questions, right? The first 20 questions in 10 minutes, and then the last 20 questions, because they're supposed to be harder, in 30 minutes. Guys, that makes no sense when the first 20 questions, if they are easier, if those are worth more, then why in the world would we rush through those? The first 20 questions on the ACT math test are infinitely more important than the last 10 questions. So that's the first thing that we have to recognize. Now, again, we're going to talk about the last 10 because that's the whole point of this video. But I don't want anybody to sit here and worry about those last 10 until you've consistently worked through that 3-pass method. If you've seen our other videos, the Star Tutors 3-pass method is absolutely critical to understand and to really, really master. And then you guys can start looking at those last 10 questions, and even at that level of testing, right, when your score is exceptionally high already on the math section, these strategies will work maybe even better at the highest levels because you can pick up a few points here and there. And that's evident more than ever, guys. And I said this, if you guys are joining us from Reddit today, and I know that some of you probably are, if you are not today, but you have in the past, one of the things I'm adamant about is pointing out this scale, right? And having you guys understand this at all levels of the test. And like I said to all of you guys, like we've said in past YouTube live streams, is that on any recent, if you're looking to get in that 30+ math range, on any recent ACT math section, of 55, right, if you get 55 questions right, okay, if you get 55 questions right on any given test, that's going to be a 34 on any recent test. You'll guarantee yourself a 34 on any recent test because of the guessing technique, which we'll talk about towards the end of the lesson today. But if you get 55 questions right, that means that if you're an exceptional math student, you probably don't have too many reservations going into the math section, right? If you're in this range already in the 30 range on math, that means you must be pretty good at math just to begin with. So you probably don't have a ton of reservations about the section. But if you already are that good at math, imagine if you just went into this test thinking, I can skip 5 questions, and rather than going into this thinking, I got to finish this, or I got to get a 36, you go in thinking, I got to get 55 questions right, and if I have a great day, yeah, maybe I have every question and I get them all right, or I get 59 questions right, I get a 36. But if it's my worst day possible and I'm focused on this 55 rule, this 55 number, hey, I'm still going to get a 34. On the flip side, if you guys focus on 50, on any recent test, 50, it absolutely guarantees you a 31. And while it says a 30 here, if you find 50 questions and then use the guessing technique, you're going to pick up another 2 or 3 questions, right, on the final 10 by guessing, the 10 you don't answer. And again, you'll guarantee a 31 on any recent test, even though you think, okay, 50 must equivalent to a 30. No, that's not true. That's not how a test works, where every question is equal value and there's no penalty for guessing. And if you guys, the more you guys understand this, and the better this is just kind of in your brain, no matter what, the better you're going to do, because that makes you an exceptional test taker. Okay, I was a horrible student as a kid. I didn't work hard, and I regret it every single day that I didn't work harder because I didn't maximize my potential. But I was a very, very, very good test taker because I understood this scale. For anybody that's seen our recent or our past videos, the whole idea behind this is if I'm trying to get a B- to save my grade in school, right? I want to get a certain score. I know exactly the number I had to get on a final when I was a kid in order to reach that goal score. If I had to get an 80% of B-, some of you guys are probably laughing right now because that's you as well, right? Try to change that around. Think about how you get an A+, so maybe you get an A in the class. But if you're thinking about the kid that's trying to get a B minus, you know exactly what you need to do on the final in order to get that B minus, to save your grade, right? So that it doesn't fall to a C plus and you get grounded. And that's what I want you guys to recognize, because that's exceptional test taking. You don't have any stress when you know you can miss 20% of the questions on the math final and you still save your grade. On the flip side, if you put in the time and the effort beforehand, then you get to go up. Then instead of looking to try to get a B minus, you're trying to save yourself to get staying at an A down to an A minus, right? And you don't have to think about a B minus to a C plus. And that's where I want you guys to be. There's a really happy medium between being an exceptional test taker and being a really hard worker. And if you guys can meet that in the middle, and everything we do in our videos is much more about exceptional test taking, not as much about hard work, because I think that's really internal and it comes from you guys. If I can merge those two things, and for anybody that's sitting out there that's saying, man, I'm a good student, I work as hard as I can, I'm just not a good test taker, I can help with that. I can't help with the work ethic thing. It's going to be a realization for some of you guys when you're like 22, 23, like I was, and been like, man, I really got to start working a lot harder if I want to accomplish some of the things that I want to accomplish. Okay, but we can make you exceptional test takers if you really think about this. Okay? Jay, it's a good question. I think if you try to get a 34, so guys, 34 plus on the math section, you have to master this technique first. That 3-pass method, I promise you, will make you an exceptional test taker. I know that because I didn't know all the concepts on this test. I've been very open about that. When I was a kid, it wasn't like I was shooting for a 36 on these exams. But I knew that I could miss 5 questions. I could miss really 6 questions probably and get a 34 when I was a kid, and that's what I set out to do. And that was perfect for me because in school, a 54 out of 60 was a 90%, right? That's 90%, that's an A minus. But I knew that a 34 on the math section, I knew this when I was 16 years old, was a 99% score. So this was a perfect test for me. If you can master the technique and convince yourself psychologically, because that's a much bigger hurdle to overcome, if you can convince yourself psychologically that this really does work, then you're off and running because you know you're going to maximize your test score on every test. Whatever that test might be, it might be lower than what you want it to be, but it's still maximized on that test. And then it's your job to work as hard as possible to get the more concepts down so you just slowly keep going up. Right? But this strategy will allow you to maximize your score on every test day without feeling overwhelmed. And again, it's a simple math equation, guys, right? If we're talking about ACT math, this isn't me just making this stuff up. It is true that at any recent test on the ACT, that if you get 55 questions right, you're guaranteed a 34. If you get 50 questions right on any recent math test that has been truly administered in the last 3 years, you will get a 31. If you get 50 right and you guess on the last 10, you will pick up enough questions on the last 10 to guarantee a 31 on the math test. And that means that you can skip 10 questions. I mean, again, in terms of reducing the stress and being a great test taker on test day, think about how big of an advantage you have over the student that's sitting next to you that's struggling and worrying about the hardest question. And what you guys are going to see today in these last 10 is that this applies even at the highest possible levels of test taking. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if all that makes sense before we get into the actual thoughts and technique here? Everybody give me a thumbs up before we get into all the thoughts and techniques. And again, guys, primarily for today, we're going to be giving we're going to be going through the last 10 questions. The last 10 questions on the ACT math test. Great, thanks, Jay. Thanks, Dennis. Great question, by the way, Jay. You've asked a lot of them. Thanks, Joseph. Okay, so what we're going to do again today, guys, is we're going to make sure that we look at those last 10 questions, and I'm going to help you guys identify that even at these high levels of testing, there are always easy questions in the last 10. And that's why it drives me crazy that generally, to say that the test is in order of difficulty is not correct, especially for high-level math students. If you've taken Algebra 2 already, there are easier questions in the last 10 than there are in the first 15, always. Okay, or I should say that there are questions in the last 10 where it's less likely that you're going to make a simple mistake. It might take you longer, but it's very straightforward. It's less likely you make a simple mistake than questions in the first 15 if you've already completed certain levels of math or if you continue to review. Okay, so I'm gonna go scroll up here real quick, and this is right. We'll talk about the guessing technique at the very end. But guys, I want everybody to scroll. I guess if you guys have the digital copy, right, that's posted below. We're looking at the 74F test. And by the way, guys, we've done a real-time video on the 74F math test. If anybody's interested, let me just post that real quick. This was right after it came out. You've probably seen some of our real-time ACT math. Okay guys, so that video, if anybody's interested, I encourage you guys to check that out. It's just a real-time video for the same test form. But guys, there's a concept that we frequently discuss in our programs. There's a concept that we frequently discuss in our programs that we call these are again last 10 questions. So last 10. ACT math, right? There's two different question types on the ACT math section in the last 10, and they are always there, okay? They are always there. Within the last 10 questions on ACT math, there are two types of questions. One is a very, very hard concept, okay? Very, very easy question, Okay, and what we'll describe those ones as is these ones are what we call rules-based questions, right? These are rules-based questions. Okay, and the reason these are so important is because you have to know, and for high-level students who are trying to improve from a 30, you have to know that the difference between what you see in school and what you see on this test is that this section, this math section, only goes up to Algebra 2 trig. It doesn't. There are no concepts that go beyond that. Now, are there a couple concepts that most Algebra 2 and trig classes don't teach? Yeah, there are a few of those. Like matrices is not one that you typically see in school, so you end up having to learn it for just the ACT math test. Though it is included in most Algebra 2 textbooks, you just never get to it in school. Okay, but a hard concept is always a very, very easy question on the last 10 problems. And this is in direct contrast, and the reason that it's very easy is because they know that if you have an Algebra 2 question, right, or a trig question, they've already gotten to a point by offering an Algebra 2 trig question, only so many students will have remembered that Algebra 2 trig concept on this exam. So that's what already makes it difficult. Really what they're trying to do with these last 10 questions is kind of figure out, okay, who can get a 28 and who can get a 36 on the math section. And that's really what the last 10 questions become. Or a 30, right, a 30 and a 36. Right? That's the difference in those last 10. And so what you guys have to remember is that most students, they're already weeding out so many students that don't remember or maybe have never learned those last 10, these hard concepts that are in reality very, very easy concepts, but you just have to review them. And I'm going to show you guys what those look like today. And that's very different, right, from an easy concept, and there's one that always comes in off, right, easy concept. The best example of this in the last 10 is probability. We should never, ever do a probability question before doing these rules-based questions. Probability is the best example of this, where it's very, very time-consuming and very easy to make a simple mistake. Very easy, right, to make a simple mistake. So I encourage you guys to write down that probability question because there's another type too. It's the integer ones where it's like two odd even integers, right? The 5th and 18th term of an arithmetic sequence. Guys, while those might be easy and you may have just covered those in class, there's so many different ways they could go about that problem, right? And if you guys are looking at those, that's going to be the ones that throw you off when every question is worth the same value and very easy to make simple mistake on these, right? It's very, very important that we understand the difference between these two. Can everybody give me 2 thumbs up in the chat if you guys understand the difference between, and these are all talking about questions in the last 10, and we're going to look at those today. The difference between a hard concept, not a hard concept necessarily for you guys if you're a great math student, but what the ACT considers a hard concept. And what that means is we need to take advantage of those, because if it's not very hard for you, but the ACT says it's hard, it means it's an extremely easy question every single time, and you're going to see that today. Versus seeing something like probability, right? Probability is a concept, we're talking about integer. Like an integer, the definition of an integer is something we learn in the 3rd grade. Okay, so that means it's a very easy concept. They're not really worried about you not understanding an integer in 3rd grade. But that doesn't mean the question is going to be easy because it's already an easy concept, so they have to make the question harder in some way. So let me give you guys an example of this. Okay, the best example on the 74F test, and I'm just going to use this one. We're going questions, by the way, 51, if you guys didn't hear this before. These are all the last 10 questions. We're going 51 through 60, okay, on the 74F math test. 74F math. And if you guys want to pull up the form, we're on page 29 of that test, and you guys can find the link to the form below this video. Okay? And again, guys, the best example that I can give to show you is question number 55. Okay, does everybody see? This is what I'm talking about. And we wouldn't typically do it this out of order. Like, I wouldn't have you skip the 51 through 54. We only knew that 55, you guys have seen, when we first did the real-time test, that was the first time I'd seen it, but that video was from 2 or 3 years ago. We've seen this. Obviously, I've gone through this test on other videos before after we did the real-time video. So this isn't the first time we've seen this. So I'm just pulling up 55 as a measure, right? But normally you'd look at 51 through 54 first. This one is just so easy that I have to bring it up first, right? Algebra 2 trig. If you guys had covered this in school, okay? If you guys edit this in school, Jay, give me 1 sec. I can show you how. I'll tell you how to do it in just a second. But guys, if you've seen Algebra 2 in school, this is one of the easiest questions on the entire ACT math test. Yet it's labeled as 55 because this just means cosecant 4x. We know that the period of the function, right, is just equal to 2 pi over b, right, for cosecant. If it's tangent, it's pi over b, but for cosine, sine, cosecant, secant, it's 2 pi over b. And this is always our b value, 4, right? So literally we're doing 2 pi over 4 is equal to pi over 2, and we're moving on from that question. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense as a concept in terms of what I want you guys to see on this test? What I want you guys to care about or what I want you guys to be aware of? Okay, because that is the easiest for anybody that's been in Algebra 2 trig that remembers this or reviews this. This question is faster, it's less time consuming, okay? Less time consuming and faster. And so what Dennis just said is perfect, right? Just learn basic rules and it all makes sense. Exactly. There are 5 to 6 questions at the end of every ACT math section that are extremely easy if you're a good math student and if you've covered this or reviewed this. They're as easy as the first 20 questions. We have to review it because the concept is a lot harder, right? We would have to assume that we've learned it before, but at that point, it's just like that might be the easiest question on the test if we remember 2 pi over b. Okay, and there's a lot of examples of that right in the last 10. So the 51 here, right, says the list. Guys, generally, if you see median, this one can be a little bit more time consuming, but I'd say do it because a median question really isn't that hard as long as you line up the numbers. Right, and the other great thing about these median questions, right, and then we're looking at mode, averages, medians, and modes, right, to the nearest whole number, and then we're looking at mean, right, those never change. The process to get these ones done never changes. So again, you got to be careful more with these, but you're still this is still very much a rules-based question. Okay, so it says the median, this is the list of numbers, the median is 25. Okay, so let's first line these up, 15, right, 15. And the mode is 15. Okay, so if the mode is 15, mode is most, so we know we have 2 15s here. The median is 25, we have 30. Okay, so this is 30, 35, right, and 41. And guys, because we have an even number, right, they've given us these. The median is 25. If we have an even number, this third number must be 20 because the mode is 15, meaning it shows up the most, and 15 must show up twice then. And then we have to have the median, right, is between those two numbers. Is it directly between those two numbers, which is 25? So we know that the x and the y values that they don't give us here must be 15 and 20. And then it says to the nearest whole number, what is the mean of the list? Well, you get your calculator all the way through, right? So 15 times 2 plus 20 plus 30 plus 35 plus 41 divided by 6. The answer is 26. That's the mean of the set. Okay, and again, medians, that question wasn't as easy or as quick as number 55, but it was still very rules-based, right? If you line up your numbers for the median question, it's going to work every time. Those are very rules-based questions. 52, systems of equations. Think about how many different ways, plus they give you so many different variables. We need to immediately skip number 52. That is not one we want to do if our goal is to get a 34 or 35 on this test. At the end of the exam, if it's your grade exam and you've done so well and you have 5 minutes left and you've already answered 56 out of 60 questions, then yeah, go back and try number 52, but don't do it right now. Right, here's the arithmetic sequence question, right? 53, never do that question. Right, never do that question. There's no reason. That one's going to immediately start to throw your mind, and there's no rule to that one. The arithmetic sequence is a rule, but the ways that you can manipulate an arithmetic sequence to make a different type of question are infinite. Right, so we can't do those. Let's look, 54. So anytime, guys, that you see trig stuff, generally speaking, these are going to be really, really easy, straightforward problems that are they're always rules-based. Trig is always rules-based, and these are questions that we should try to do. Okay, so it says, one of the following graphs in the standard coordinate plane is the graph of y equals sine squared x plus cosine squared x over this domain. Okay, guys, this is just a trig identity problem, right, guys? If it says y equals sine squared x plus cosine squared x, if we guys remember this from your trig identities, and this is why, right, not only review of trig is so important, but being able to apply it, sine squared x plus cosine squared x is equal to 1. And this is equal to y, right? That's just a rule, that's a trig identity, so that must mean that y is also equal to 1. And boom, right? Y equals 1 is just a horizontal line, that's the only one there. That one might be a little bit more, so that 54, guys, right, is probably a little bit more of an in-depth rule, right? 54 is more of an in-depth rule than 55, which, like, the period of a function is something that everybody always learns in trig. 54 might be a little bit harder to remember, but it's still just a very, very consistent trig rule. Trig identity, you learned it at some point in your trig class, guaranteed. It's a little bit more buried than something like the period of the function in your trig classes, but generally speaking, it's still very, very straightforward. And those are the ones we want to do first. If you're trying to get a 34 plus, get a 34 before trying to get to the 36. Right? Make sure you have a 34. Don't fool around with the arithmetic sequence question when you would have two very easy trig problems following it, and the only reason you should miss those ever is because you were inclined, right, to do a simple mistake for. It's 50, by the way, Jay. 50 is another one we want to skip. Guys, I'm going to come back to these and redo these questions, the ones that we're skipping. But what I'm trying to get across before we do any of these difficult ones is to show you guys that you don't need to do any of those and you can still get a 34 on the math section. And then if you have time at the very end to come back, great. Go back and try number 50 or try number 52 or whatever the arithmetic sequence question was. But until you get to that point, don't do those questions. Move on. Guarantee your 34, and then you can decide on the 36. Maybe a 34 is the best you can do that day because you're tired or you're stressed, you went to bed late, whatever. Don't let a 34 turn into a 32 just because you don't want to skip a question, right? Keep that in mind. And Jay, yeah, absolutely. We'll come back to number 50. Jay, is everybody seeing this though? Like 56, guys, right? 56, I don't want to do right now. It might be the easiest question ever, right? Expected value generally isn't too bad, but there's a million different ways to do an expected value question. There's a million different ways they could set that up on us, right? And that's not one that's rules-based. The general overview is rules-based, but the intricacy of it is not, whereas the period of a function is as rules-based as it comes. Sine squared x plus cosine squared x, that is straightforward as it comes. And those are the ones we want to do first. Number 57, guys, I've never seen them. If this is determinant of a matrix. If you guys see this is actually a really, really easy problem. Other than the 74F test form, I've never seen them actually give you the determinant of the matrix. But if you guys memorize matrices and you see this word determinant, these are very easy questions if you can just remember this formula. That A, right, A times D, let's switch colors here, A times D is equal to minus B times C is equal to your determinant. Okay, and so this one's pretty straightforward, right? K, and so we get K squared, right, minus 4 times 3, right, is equal to something, is equal to a number. Okay? Yeah, so time, great question, Jay. Sorry, guys, I was just on that, and I'll come back. Guys, the way that I do the time-consuming problems, honestly, first of all, there is practice, right? Like before, you saw that, Jay, I didn't even read 56 because I was just looking for the final word that they give you, right? I was looking at period of a function. You guys have seen that I've underlined these. With enough practice, right, and I feel like on most of these tests, if I'm not doing those real time where I have to keep talking to the camera, if I just put my head down, I'm very confident I could get a 36 on these exams. That has nothing to do. I see these tests all the time, right? All of the same rules continue to come up, so eventually you just run out of things to look for. But Jay, the point that I'm making there is that if I look for expected value and I feel like I know how to do it, then I'll do it, right? Determinant of a matrix, I feel like I know how to do, so I'm going to do that problem. Period of a function, right? I looked at sine squared x, cosine squared x, which is why I circled it up here. I saw arithmetic sequence, right? And with enough practice, Jay, you just get really, really good at identifying whether the question is going to take a while. But at least for a short period of time, these are the ones that I would try to avoid in the last 10 questions, okay? If you guys want to write these out. Anything dealing with probability, don't do right away. Do not do probability. Do not do sequences. Don't do exponents. And long word problems. Those are the ones that everybody gets tripped up on. Long word problems. If you avoid those four things, at least initially, and there's just going to be one of those types of questions per test, just one. So there might be four. Right there's your 56. You might have one of each of those four, but you will only have one of those. You're not going to get two sequence problems in the last 10. So don't do those four. And again, if you do that, you're guaranteeing yourself a 34. But Jay, did you see how I was looking? You can kind of see, right? If I see the word bisects, okay? If I see the word bisects, yeah, Dennis, by the way, guys, on these questions here, on the earlier problems, an exponent question is not going to be very hard. The reason that they give you an exponent problem late in the test is because there's exponents, right, literally are infinite, right? You could take, does that make sense, Dennis? That exponent problems are infinite. So there's so many different ways they could make that problem. But if you see one in the first 20, that's not that bad. These ones that you should skip here, and everything we're discussing for today's lesson is only related to the last 10 questions. These are the last 10, right? If you see these concepts, you do not want to do them in the last 10, at least initially. Okay, we can always come back to them, which we will today, but we do not want to do any of these concepts, at least initially, if we see them on the test. Jay, does it make sense how I was looking for the specific word? Every single one of these questions, right, I see the word bisects here, and then I see angles. The chances that's an angle or a line segment problem are infinitely high, right? This one here, right, I know right away that in some way this is going to be dealing with trig, and right, trig in some capacity. Here's an exponent problem, right, because it's a positive integer with an exponent as an unknown value, so I'm going to skip 58. And that's what I'm looking for, guys. Right, and again, as you just review more, that's where reviewing more obviously helps. That's where your hard work is going to pay off in a big way, because not only do you understand that, not only do you know which questions to skip, but then you just end up knowing how to do every problem that you see, and your time isn't that big of a factor, and you're focused on accuracy and all that stuff. Okay? So again, just real quick on determinant of a matrix, I would memorize this, because if you see it, it's really easy. I've never seen them give the actual equation for a determinant of a matrix, except on the 74F test. So it's good to probably memorize that, because if it does show up late in the test, okay, it's not too bad, because it's just k squared minus, and this it says is equal to k, right? We just set that equal to k. Subtract k, right? Anytime we have a polynomial with a squared term like this, we just want to get that back to 0, right? Zero product theorem. Minus k minus 12 is equal to 0. K minus 3, right? No, k plus 3. K minus 4 equals 0. K equals negative 3, 4. Positive real value, so the positive value should be 4 for B. And that's, again, that's a little bit more time consuming. I certainly wouldn't recommend, but it's still rules based. You're doing factoring, that's rules based. Determinant of a matrix, that's rules based. Okay, we're going to skip number 58, right? Skip number 58. Let's look at 59. Okay, because I can't encourage you guys enough to memorize every trig rule in the book. There's like 3 trig problems every time. This isn't really in the last 10 necessarily, but in the last 15, there are always 3 trig problems, and they are so easy if you just memorize all your trig rules. That has nothing to do with you being a better math student or me being a better math student. It has 100% certainty about memorizing math rules. That if you see the word period of a function, right, those words, 2 pi over b, or tangent, it's pi over b. And you just immediately know that, and then the question takes 5 seconds. So I can't stress how important trig rule questions end up becoming on the whole ACT math section, but especially in the last 15. Okay? Number 59, though, says sine, absolute value sine is greater than or equal to is true for only... Yeah, guys, if you remember that sine and cosine, right, on the unit circle, okay, they only go to 1. Right, if we think about our unit circle. All of these values, this is just equal to -1, this is just equal to 1. Looking for the absolute value is greater than or equal to, right? So equal to is the key here, and that means that it could be either this value because y is on the y, sine is on the y-axis, or this value. So this up here would be pi over 2. This down here would be 3 pi over 2. I'm sorry, negative pi over 2. Sorry. Then it's not the empty set. It's not all values. It's not C. I think it's negative pi over 2, right? Coming back around here, yeah. Which is just 3 pi over 2. Okay. Am I crazy? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 3 pi over 2, guys, right? 3 pi over 2 can be written as negative pi over 2 if you start at 0, or start at 2 pi and you go backwards. But yeah, those are the only 2 values, right? So that's a trig problem. Okay, that's a trig problem. Number 60. Okay, number 60 then is an angles problem. So geometry and trig, I say trig because that's more prominent in the end of the math test, but geometry is the same thing, right? It's all rules based. Everything that you see, the best part about the ACT math test is there's about 20 geometry problems on every ACT math test, including trig problems. So including trig, geometry and trig, there's about 20 out of 60 questions. That means that if you guys just sit down and memorize everything there is to know about geometry and trig, just memorize all the rules, okay, then you just sit down every single math test and you know you're going to be 20 out of 60 before you even start, right? As long as you're focused on accuracy, you basically start the test at 20 out of 60 because every one of those questions is rules-based, and it's really hard to miss a rules-based question unless you're kind of deliberately reading too quickly if you're not really focused on accuracy. Okay, so like in this one, right, if we think about this, it says ray PK bisects angle LPM. So bisects angle LPM. So this looks like it's LPM. Oops, that's another P. LPM. We have a ray K, right? PK that bisects it. Meaning that that angle, right, is equal to that angle. This is K. Okay? Oh yeah, Amar, yeah. So going back to J, yeah. J, that's how we use it with Acrobat. We have the subscription for Acrobat. Sorry, I forgot about that. Adobe Acrobat, the PDF writer, we have a subscription for it. So you do have to pay if you want like unlimited storage and some of these upgraded features, but you can get the basic version to just open a PDF, and then if you want to buy the subscription, I think it's like $30 a month, and that's how you can write on an iPad like this. Good question. Sorry. Thanks, Amar, for bringing that back up. Okay, so then we have PDF, right? LPM then is 11x. LPM. Okay, so the whole thing is 11x. The whole thing is 11x. And LPK is 4x plus 18. LPK is 4x. This is a measure of KPM. Okay, so well, KPM, right, is equal to LPX. So angle LPK. LPK equals angle KPM. Right, so then we can just say 4x plus 18 times 2, because it bisects, right? They're equal to each other, is equal to 11x. And now we just solve for x. 8x plus 36 equals 11x. 36 equals 3x, so x equals 12. We're looking for KPM, which is 4x plus 18, so 12 times 4 is 48, plus 18 is 66. Okay. Does that all make sense, guys? So again, the whole point of what I wanted to show you guys is that now how many of those questions did we skip? We skipped 56, 55, 53, and 52. So that's the whole point I wanted to make to you guys. On this particular test, we answered 6 out of the last 10 questions. And now, depending on your timing, you can go back and make a determination. But if you're an exceptional math student looking to get into that 34, go from a 30 to a 34 range, right, or a 28 to a 32 range, somewhere in there, it is so critical, especially in the last 10 and maybe even in the last 15 problems if you're more in that 28 range, that if you start to memorize and get down to a time certainty, right, that you're starting to think about where are the easy rules-based questions. 6 out of 10 of the last 10 questions on this test, right, 6 out of 10 were rules-based. Yeah, specifically rules-based. 4 out of 10 were geometry/trigonometry. So we got to get to those questions first before we ever consider a really difficult word problem that deals with arithmetic sequences. Hey guys, before we go on to any of the questions that we skipped, can everybody give me 2 thumbs up if it makes sense how we're going to tackle this test? That the rules-based questions, for those of you that are trying to score in the high levels of the math test, right, you're still trying to apply that 3-path strategy if you've seen our other math videos. You don't lose sight of that even if you're scoring really highly. And the problem that we always have with high-level students, with a lot of high-level students, is that there's so much pride, right? If you're a really smart student, there's so much pride in getting every question right. Now, you can do that, but that's not going to maximize your test score on any given day. Maximizing your test score means going in with a strategic plan to find 56 out of 60 questions. If you're trying to get that, this is if you're trying to get to a 35, 36 score. You find 56 out of 60 knowing that you can skip 4 questions, and at worst, you're going to end up with a 35, and maybe you don't get the 36 that you wanted that day, but you end up maximizing your score at a 35 because you're aware that you can still skip the 4 hardest questions. It is so critical to be able to do that as a test taker. There's a major difference between being a really hard worker and being a great test taker, and we want to merge those 2 things. But in this video, for all of you that are already working really hard, I want to show you guys how you can maximize your test score and never go below certain points, right? That's the idea. That is the idea here. So any general questions, guys? Dennis, we don't. Here, Dennis, that's just for this video. Dennis, if you... Dennis, let me just post another video, guys. That's just for this video, and remember, guys, that I wanted to preface this, right? Sorry, one sec. Amar, I would say, Dennis, here's a video of trying to go from like a 24 right on the math section. ACT math. Using the same principles we're talking about today. I wanted to do a video because we've been asked about it a lot, about these last 10 questions and the best way to tackle those. And so I wanted, but Dennis, if you check this out, ACT math, improving, 3 to 4 points. So Dennis, I encourage you to check out that video if you're interested. But that video goes through the same idea today, right? It goes through the same thoughts of today's last 10 questions. It just does it so that you maybe be answering 35 questions instead of 55 or whatever. So I encourage you to check that video out. It's the same. We did a live stream 6 months ago. Amar, I would say very hard questions. If you've done all the work you need to do, I'd say there are 4 very hard questions on every ACT math test. Like very, very hard. Now that assumes that you're already a great math student and you've done all the work necessary to memorize all the rules that we just talked about. But once you have the rules down for the 6 questions we just went over, those questions just aren't very hard. They might be a little time consuming. We got to be careful, right? That's not this. We don't want to get too proud or too arrogant and say that we don't need to spend time on those. But they're very step by step, right? Like all of these questions, you guys can see the work that I've done on every single one of those questions. There's not really a guessing and checking factor on those 6. But there are 4 questions where, there's a million different ways to solve for them, and we got to be really careful on how we go about doing that. Does that make sense, Mara? Maybe the difference between those 2? And Dennis, does that all make sense? If you check out that video, again, I highly encourage you to do that if you have time. Everybody good? And then Jay, if you're still there, let's go through a few of these. So guys, this is the type of thing I'm talking about. The sum of 2 positive numbers is 151. So this is a great example. Jay asked about number 50. This is the reason we skip these first, okay? Because think about how easy the ACT could change this. There's no real preparation, right? The process here is you can change, but, the process here can maybe be a little consistent, but that doesn't mean this question's easy, because very easily I could just change this number to 1053, right? I could just change that number to 1053, and all of a sudden that's a completely different question. Or I could change this 2 positive number, right, to 3. And that's a different question, and it's a different way to approach that if it's an odd number versus an even number. There's just so much to keep track of when you're looking at a question like number 50, whereas the period of a function never changes, 2 pi over b, right? There's one thing to think about, and if you remember it, you get number 55 right. Okay, but let's see if we can do this one. The sum of, and one thing I would say, guys, is on these last 4 or 5 questions that we're going to go over, make sure that you take your time. It's much better to get one of these questions right to get your score up from, like, let's say 56 out of 60 to 57 out of 60 than it is to rush through all of them and get all of them wrong because you're rushing. So take your time. Get one of them right rather than trying to get all 4 right and instead getting all 4 wrong. If you get one right and then you guess on the other 3 that you don't get to, you're going to get 2 of those questions right. Using an effective guessing method, you'll get 2 of those right. So now you're 2 out of 4 instead of 0 out of 4 potentially. Okay, so let's take our time. The sum of 2 positive numbers is 151. Okay, so sum of 2 positive numbers, x plus y equals 151. The lesser number is 19. Lesser number is 19 more. Okay, so the lesser number is 19 more than the square root of the greater number. Okay, so it's 19 more than that. So we're going to say y plus, y minus 19, right? You got to be careful on that. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Is you're like, is it y plus 19 or y minus 19, right, is equal to the square root of x, where x is the larger number. I'm going to add 19 over. But does everybody see that, right? I've seen this test form before even, and it was still one of those where you're like, wait a second, is that right? And you're trying to think about what they're actually saying. Can everybody give me 2 thumbs up if you guys, that's a perfect example of seeing a question already and still being like, wait, what are they talking about here? Okay? So we got to be really careful with that. And then we get into this really long process, right, where we have to substitute this back in. It's a systems of equations now, right? We substitute this back in, and now we have x, and instead of plus y, we have plus the square root of x plus 19 is equal to 151. Okay? And then we go through the whole process, right, of x plus the square root of x plus 19 equals 151, right? And then we have to go through the process of subtracting 19, squaring both sides. But you can see how quickly that becomes a huge pain, right? Can everybody see that? That way, if we keep doing the math here, and then maybe we can, right, and maybe we're trying to look for the lesser number, right? It's what is the value of the greater number minus the lesser number? So we're saying x minus y equals what? Maybe you can start plugging in numbers from there to solve. But that's how you'd set that problem up, and then you'd go through the math of solving for x plus root x plus 19 equals 151. You'd square both sides, right? Get a polynomial, then factor. But it becomes a huge pain, right? Or you could use u substitution if you guys are already at the end of pre-calc or calculus. You could use u substitution and make it a little bit easier for yourself by saying x equals u squared. But no matter what you're doing, that question becomes a lot more painful than number 55, which says, what is the period of this function? Okay? And amazingly, right, this is all incorporating stuff that integers, right, sum of 2 positive numbers is 151. But amazingly, this is all incorporating things that are learned at a relatively young age in an arithmetic math class, yet it's a much harder problem than something that's learned as a sophomore or junior in high school in an Algebra 2 trig class. Right? We got to be really careful about that. There's a couple more here that we... let's see. What are you given the following equations where r, s, and t are integers? For the following, will there be one xy solution with real coordinates? So one xy solution with real number coordinates for the system. Okay, so one... let's see. We're definitely looking for something that's a... we're definitely looking for something that would be a minus sign here. No, plus sign, right? Let's see, y equals x squared. Plug that in. t. Does that help us go though? Excellent. There's one xy solution. What in the world is happening in this problem? Which of the following real numbers? You guys can see, without a doubt, right? Can everybody see that this is, let's come back to 52. One of the things we keep working through, we'll get through it, but that problem takes that's going to take a second. This arithmetic sequence problem might take us less time. The third and fourth terms, right? Usually arithmetic sequences are a little bit more step by step, but there's still questions you want to skip. Third and fourth terms, right, of an arithmetic sequence are 13 and 18. Arithmetic means we're adding every time, right? So we're adding 5 every time, and that's part of the rule. What is the 50th term of the sequence? Well, we have to figure out 5 then, right, would be 23. Okay, and so we're asking ourselves, how many terms are there from 5 to 50, right? How many terms are there from 5 to 50? And once we know that number, right, there's 46 terms between 5 and 50. And now we can multiply that number by our difference, right, which was 5. 46 times 5. What's that? What's the calculator? Calculator here. 230. So we did, right, guys, there's 230 more numbers, 230. And then we have to add the 18, right? So 230 plus 18 is equal to 248. And I think that should be right. But again, we're just taking, there's 5, right? There's 46 terms between 5 and 50 if we include number 5. We're multiplying that by 5 because the arithmetic sequence is just adding every time. But guys, does everybody see that even though we got that one right, and that one's easier for sure. I mean, 52, the purpose of this is not to show you guys too much because I know we have to run here. I've tried to make this an hour video. 52 is way harder than 53. This never stops. To be a great test taker means that you are as efficient as possible. That's what you do in the test. You're as efficient as you possibly can be at every level of the test. That doesn't mean that you don't work hard outside of the test to continue to accumulate knowledge and get to a point where you know everything. But I do this every single day. Okay, I do this every single day for a living, and I'm a math tutor as well, and 52 was giving me trouble. Now, the reason that I think people have responded well to these videos that I've done in the past is solely because I'm not afraid to admit that 52 is going to take me a second. Just because you tutor math and because you're a good test taker doesn't mean that there isn't going to be questions that give you trouble. I knew that as a kid, and I know that now, and being really upfront and honest with you guys about the fact that, hey, 52 is going to take me a second, even though I should know it, and I got to move on. Because if I do move on and I can get every other question right, if I can get every single other question right, let's say I skip 2. Even if I get 58 out of 60, but I leave question 52, you'll notice that I didn't actually answer 52. I just left it blank. And then I find a guessing letter. It's probably pretty likely that I'm gonna get one of those additional 2 questions right. Probably 50-50 shot. At worst, I'm sitting at a 35 already, right? And at best, if I get just one more right, I get a 36 by not worrying about a question like 52. Especially with knowing that if I'm doing these in order, doing question 52 and then coming all the way through, there are still 9 questions left. There are 8 questions left that I haven't done yet, and I might be, that might be detrimental. Yeah, Amar, it kind of depends on efficiency. So, Amar, it's a great question. I would say that the best thing that you guys can do in terms of efficiency and maximizing is to use, we've created these. This is all free, guys. Everything that we try to offer here for you guys is free. Okay, so the first thing that I would say, is just to see, Amar, maybe you get them all right, but I would just see by plugging your answers into any of these advanced score reports. Okay, these are the ones that we've made so far. No, yeah, Jennifer, these are all of these are posted on our YouTube channel. So if you subscribe, you'll always know when we post a new video. It'll post a video when it's live, and then it'll post another video saying that we were live and that the recording is now available. Okay, so Mar, the first thing I would do is I would plug your answers into those advanced score reports for the tests that we've done. Just see if there's any consistent question types that you're missing. Like if you're missing geometry, area, perimeter questions a lot, then make sure that you review that. Okay? But beyond that, I would just say that you should take practice tests and really work on efficiency. Okay, so Amari, the first thing that you should think about is if you're trying to go from a 27 to a 34, you do not want to think about what a 34 is, right? Don't just think about it like that. Think about it as, what do I need to, how many questions do I need to answer in order to get a 34? And the answer to that is a 53. So Amar, your goal, right, moving forward, Amar, your goal is you're going to find 53 questions that you know how to do. And you're going to go into every single test. You can even keep a tally, right? 7 questions isn't that much. If you keep a tally, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you'll know, okay? You'll know how many questions that you can skip. And if you skip 7 questions and you guess the rest of the way down, you'll guarantee yourself a 34 on any recent test. Does that make sense, Amar? This is the number you're focused on, guys. Everybody at every level of this test should be focused on the number of questions you want to answer correctly to correspond to a score, and then know that there's no penalty for guessing. Okay, so yeah, that's your goal, right? And Amar, what I would do is if you're at a 27 now, try to get to a 30 first. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is on your next test, do 47. Get 47 out of 60. See if you can do that, and then guess the rest of the way down. Same letter, guys. If you guys want to check out how to be an effective guesser, okay, if you guys want to be an effective guesser on the test, we've made a video on that too. Okay. Okay, and there's actually a way to guess more questions correctly than what you'd statistically, right? The probability of guessing in 1 in 5. There's a way, and it's amazing to me that this still applies. But in both those 2 math videos that I posted, one that responding to Dennis earlier, and then the one that I just posted, both of those go through the guessing technique, and I can't stress how, right? If Amar, you go to 47, right, and then you guess the same letter down the rest of the way, you'll get a 30, 31. That will give you the confidence to say, man, this really does work. Now let me try to go for 53 where I can get a 34. But take it step by step, guys. A 7-point jump is a big jump. And what happens is if you set a big, it's possible, right? We've seen students do that from one test to the next. But instead of doing a 7-point jump, do 2 tests where you have a 3-point jump both times, or a 3 and a 4-point jump. Because once you see it work with 3 points, which is a much more reasonable expectation because you're just trying this for the first time, get a 3-point jump and be like, oh man, that really works. Now I'm going for 53 out of 60. And you'll see it work even better because now you have the confidence and you know personally inside that you know it works. It's not just me telling you it works. Yeah, so Amar, just keep practicing, right? You guys got to keep practicing. If it's 1 test, then go from 1 to 3. Jennifer, your question? Practice. Okay? Yeah, so Jennifer, what I would say is that it's certainly possible. Guys, we have seen students jump 10 plus points. Okay? We have seen students easily jump 10 plus points, but it's methodical. I've never seen a student that goes in with the mindset of, I have a 20 now and I'm going to get a 30 tomorrow, and that work out well. Not once. Not only from a concept standpoint, but also from a strategy standpoint. These are things that you have to implement. This is a different way to think about a test because it's a very different test than anything you guys ever take in school. School tests are not usually multiple choice. They are usually, every question is worth a different value, right? Free response questions are, if there is multiple choice on the test, then the free response questions are worth more. This is not that same test, so you have to understand it and learn how to take this test before just jumping in and expecting a certain score. You have to know, and if you do this methodically, I promise your score will go up, and it can go up very quickly. It'll just go up in 3 sections instead of 1, right? 3 tests instead of 1. Yeah, so Carly, in terms of, you just review, guys, right? So in terms of the math test, okay, guys, getting faster is about reviewing concepts. And Carly, I just posted that link for Amar earlier, which is that one to our advanced score reports. I would highly recommend in terms of review, right? Take a practice test. Okay, take a practice test, and then plug in. Yeah, guys. Yeah, any support, guys. We always appreciate the support and the nice comments. So yeah, I really appreciate it. Any support you guys have for the channel, if you could help us spread the word, we'd love to do a million other videos like this, and we have a million more content things we can talk about. But we just have to keep growing the channel. Every support, any help that you guys can give us to spread the word, subscribe to the channel yourselves, please, if you haven't already. And any support that you guys can give us by spreading the word to your friends, I promise we can do more videos. We can do a significantly more videos if you guys help us spread the word. Okay? Yeah, so Jennifer, the four big ones for algebra, and again, guys, everybody, I should say this, and then I'm just trying to keep this to an hour, and we'll be doing more of these. Like I said, I'd love to do even more than we already are doing. But here, guys, if you are interested, here for free, you guys can download our app, which includes all of our tutorials. Oh, you found this by the app. Okay, so yeah, Jennifer, if you have the app, those are all the most prominent questions. Those are the most prominent questions on the app. Yeah, so if you guys have seen Star U before, if you haven't, Jennifer, it sounds like you have, but download Star U in App Store or Google Play. Or at. Yeah, you guys can create a free student account. Yeah, Ayub, let me post a video just because we're trying to keep it to just math, just so that students are watching. But we have plenty of ACT reading videos. If anybody's interested in ACT reading, we actually have a full playlist. It's where we started. It was our best. Our ACT reading playlist is definitely our most watched. ACT reading. Yeah, so there's an ACT reading playlist, guys, that I encourage you to check that out. And amazingly, it's not only math that we do. We actually do ACT reading and ACT science are the ones that are most watched on the channel. So here's our ACT science playlist if you guys are interested in that as well. Yeah, guys, so those playlists I just posted, those are all free. Amar, check out that playlist. If you guys haven't checked it out before, a lot of the same strategies. Actually, to be honest, the 3-pass method that we keep talking about, finding these easy questions, that was actually all developed for the ACT science section, and we realized it applied really well to the math, ACT math section and the SAT math section. But we have some really good videos on ACT science if you guys are interested to check that out. Yeah, if you guys if you're missing, I would encourage you guys to check out the BO4 ACT Science test, BO4 test form, and then we have a corresponding video. It's probably the best video we've ever made. Those real-time videos where I sit down and take the full practice test. Garish, that's awesome, guys. Honestly, if any nice comments that you guys have that you post, I know this seems so sentimental, but it really does drive us to make more of these videos. So that's awesome. That 36 is in the top 0.1% of all students that take this exam. That's over 2 million students. That you should be more. Getting a 36 is unbelievable. So great job. Congratulations. That is a testament to how much hard work you put in. Yeah, guys. And look, Amar, it's only going to keep going up. Okay, it's not the thing that I want to communicate that drove me nuts. That I used to work for different companies. It drove me crazy to think that me as a tutor in this position, it makes me better, it makes me more knowledgeable than you. The only reason I'm more knowledgeable than you guys on this ACT is because I've looked at it more. That doesn't mean that you guys can't be great test takers too, right? And that's what I want to try to communicate. All of you guys can be great test takers. There's no doubt in my mind. The only reason that I'm the one that's speaking now and trying to give you guys as much info as I can is just because I've seen it so much. That's kind of sad, right? That's more sad than anything. But there are so many tutors and teachers that use this as if like they know more. It's so they're so full of it. Because as we know, as we just went over, talking about geometry doesn't make me a mathematician. I'm not Albert Einstein because I know how to do geometry, basic geometry, right? Knowing the trig rules does not make me Isaac Newton. It makes it so that you guys can memorize those too, and if you guys become great test takers, you will do well in this exam. I've seen it too many times to not let that happen. Okay? You guys really have to just keep it up. You guys are doing great. Yeah, so you just keep improving. One step at a time, guys. It'll keep making it happen. You guys are going to do great. keep thinking about this idea of not overwhelming yourself in terms of what your score is going to be. Oh, I got to get a 34, right? Think about it as, what is it going to take to get to a 34? What is it going to take to get to a 30? What's the number that I need to reach? Because if you do that, you're going to be amazed at how much pressure and stress is taken off the test, and how easy some of these concepts are. To Amar's point there, right? English used to be my worst subject, but once I memorized basic grammar rules, I felt so much more confident, and now I can crush the English test, right? That's the whole mindset. And each test, each section of the ACT is a little bit different, right? In terms of strategy, in terms of content, obviously on the content front. So we have to keep working and find those little nuances, and then if you do that, your score is through the roof, right? You can't do. There's only so much you can do, and then you just know everything, and you can't do any better. So again, you guys are going to do absolutely awesome on this test. I promise. We're going to keep coming out with these videos, a lot more leading up to that June ACT. Okay. Dennis, there's a test in September this year, and there's a test in October. So the September and October test, you get June. From here on out, guys, for any juniors that are going to apply as seniors, there should be even more confidence because you have 4 more tests before you have to submit early applications, and then you have 5 more tests before regular applications. So you have June, July, September, August. Sorry, September, October. October comes after September. September, October, and December. So those 5. Okay, so you get one, early September there, Jennifer. Early September. All right, guys. In any case, you guys are going to do absolutely great. Keep up the hard work. If you guys have any questions for us, make sure that you comment below these videos. We're happy to answer those. We'll be coming out with more videos on all subject matter going forward. And if you guys have any further questions for us, again, make sure you comment on the videos below. We can't tell you how much we appreciate the support. Please help us spread the word so that we can make even more videos than we are envisioning right now. And guys, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you guys soon. Keep it up, guys. You're doing awesome. Don't lose sight of the end goal, right? Stay positive. More positivity will help everybody. Stay positive. You guys are doing great. All right, bye, guys. See you soon.